Chris, I'm just letting people in as they're coming in, right? That's fine, isn't it?
I think Kat might want a few minutes to make sure everything's ready before we let anyone in.
Oh, okay. Oh, Kat's here. I'll stop admitting people after her.
We also probably shouldn't be recording yet. Probably should pause the
Conference. Yesterday we kicked off, and don't mind Torchy here, he's just going to be joining me. Yesterday we kicked off the conference with a welcome orientation and a presidential address, the video of which can currently be found on our website, nrhchonors.com. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, take a look over there and watch it. It's also on the conference portal if you click on yesterday's event. It's my great pleasure to introduce this evening's speaker, Kat McDonald. She's a professor of English and social science and the coordinator of the Monroe College Honors Program. And she's been on the NRHC executive board for the past 4 years. As president-elect, she hosted our conference in 2019 in Baltimore. She was the conference chair, and that was an enormous success. And it was also the last time that we've had the chance to gather together in person as an organization. Last year, she should have had the opportunity to address all of you in person in the hotel ballroom of the Albany Hilton Hotel to give her presidential address. And like so many things in the last year, that opportunity had to be sidelined in the interest of health and safety. And but I just want to point out that Kat has worked tirelessly, not just on the conference that she chaired in Baltimore, but on every conference that she's been involved with since she joined the executive board, and even before that for several years. She's spearheaded NRHC's academic journal, Illuminate. She's taken on the responsibility of sponsorship, outreach, and procurement. She spent dozens of hours designing the program for this year's conference, which I'm very thankful for. And she's probably been more involved than any immediate past president that I've seen in my years affiliated with NRHC. So while I regret that she did not get the chance to give a presidential address last year, I'm thrilled that we were able to offer her a platform to give her immediate past presidential address. And it's probably the first one in this organization's history. So she tells me that this address will be interactive. So I hope that all of you will join us and participate and be involved and keep your cameras on and smile. And without further delay, I'd like to introduce your NRHC immediate past president, Professor Kat McDonald.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. So I'm going to share my screen, guys, because I did prepare a little PowerPoint, and hopefully it'll work for me here. So there we go. So I'm going to go inside. Okay, so I titled this speech, Life Since March 2020. So as we go through this, you're going to get insight into my crazy mind, and hopefully I'll get some insight into yours. And, you know, again, the speech that I planned for Albany was not, you know, I didn't get to give it, so I had to rethink this to kind of, again, deliver an interactive but fun speech for a virtual environment. So Chris already did a big part of my introduction, so it is really nice to meet everybody. As he said, I'm the coordinator of the Monroe College Honors Program, so shout out to all my students who are here and my colleague, Professor Wigato. I've been officially on the board since 2018, but I've been involved with NRHC since like 2012. So one of the things outside of all the stuff that Chris said that I'm really proud of is that I invented Torchy, who's our mascot. I'm going to talk a little bit more later about crochet and like my craziness for crochet, but this is the original Torchy. He's small and he's grown in size over the years, and this was definitely a pandemic project. So this is one of the ways that I've channeled some of my energy for the past year. So again, when you look on our survey that I put out there, I'm asking you to tell me what you think about Torchy. And what I'll say is that working for NRHC is one of the things I'm most proud of. So I hope that you'll get that feeling as I go through my remarks. So how do you convey a year like 2020? I don't know about you guys, but I've been watching a lot of Netflix, Amazon Prime, you know, binging things, right? So one of the questions that I've asked you, and you can use the chat right now to share live during the presentation, is what have you been binging? Because I always find that when I ask people that question, I get all new things to look at and new ideas and everything else. So if you want to put it in the chat or open your mic and tell me really quick, shout out some things. X-Files, Sweet Magnolias, Criminal Minds, Schitt's Creek, all right. So people are rewatching things, it looks like, revisiting old classics. Okay. So I'm going to share what you guys put into the survey so that way we all know what we're watching. So the next couple slides, you're going to get insight into what I've been watching. Okay. And how I think they relate to the pandemic and the year that we've been through. So leading up to March 2020, all right, the pandemic was coming and I had awesome colleagues on the NRHC board and we navigated through the crisis like pros, right? So I had to think about Michael Scott because that's what I was watching at the time. And he said once, the people that you get to work with are, when you get down to it, your very best friends. And that's what I'll say about all my colleagues who are here on the board tonight who've joined in, that it's been, just a great ride. And thank you. So then March 2020 came and I was into Downton Abbey. And I thought, and this is my favorite character from Downton Abbey. I don't know if you guys know the Dowager Countess, but could you imagine if the Dowager Countess had to deal with Zoom? There's an episode in Downton Abbey when she's looking at the brand new telephone that's been installed in the house. And she goes, is this an instrument of communication or torture? And I think at first we all felt the same way about doing everything virtual and social distancing and what that would mean. And, I think we acclimated to it, but I always found that to be a funny quote. Summer 2020 was a Gilmore Girls summer for me, I have to admit. And Lorelai Gilmore is the protagonist in that series. And we know that things seemed a little bit better in the summer. It was warmer, we could be outside, but we knew it wasn't over. So the quote I chose for the summer was, we're almost there and nowhere near it. All that matters is that we're going. And I think that still stands true, that we're still weathering and we're still working through the day-to-day and, taking things as they come. So then fall 2020, like some of you put in the chat, I got into Schitt's Creek. I'm still watching Schitt's Creek right now. And it's been a long stretch of months. By the time we got to September, October, I think we maybe felt a little bit like this. I'm trying very hard not to connect people right now, right? From David Rose from Schitt's Creek. And I could never get his delivery, but I think I think we've all felt that way at some point. And if you felt that way, definitely share in the chat, raise your hand, show me if you felt that way. And then that brings me to the new year. And then in the new year, I've been spending a lot of time in the kitchen, and not just as the holidays and baking, but I literally watched every season of the Great British Baking Show. And this woman, Val, was so funny. And she said, I listen to my cakes and they're not ready. They sing and they say, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And I found myself at weird times talking to the things that I cook, talking to Torchy. Just talking to myself. So I feel like if you can relate, let me know. But that's how I felt at the beginning of this year. So as we reflect upon the last year, I asked you guys in the survey, if you got a chance to do it, I asked you this question, so I'm asking it to you now live. If you had to describe the last 12 months of your life in one word, what would it be? And I know that that's probably really hard to do. And I peeked at the survey results. I'm not going to switch my screen right now, but I saw a lot of people put into the survey so far, hectic, challenging. Very few people actually described it, positively as being fantastic or good. And I wonder, what that means, right? And it's not necessarily that means anything bad, but I think we have to kind of think about, how do we handle that feeling, right? So I want you to reflect on the word that you chose and why you chose it. So here's a disclaimer about this part of my presentation. I would hardly call myself an expert on the subject, and by the subject, I mean genuine human emotion. So I'm just going to tell you what I know. And again, that's a Schitt's Creek quote for those of you who are fans. So for me, as I prepared my speech for tonight in my presentation, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I've practiced over the last year, and then also invite you guys to share what you've practiced, because one of the things that I've learned as I've gone through the 4 years being on the executive board for NRHC, and what I've learned just being part of this amazing organization, since 2012, is that we are a bunch of really eclectic, intelligent, creative, smart folks. And I want to hear from you guys. So 3 things that I've tried to practice this year, and I'm going to say the word try a lot, is creativity, gratitude, and meditation. So with creativity, all right, so I've already kind of hinted at the fact that I like to crochet. And so I'm going to ask you guys, what's your creative outlet when the virtualness, as I call it, is driving you crazy? So I'm going to look at the chat, but if anyone wants to chime in and open their mic, I'll give you a second. And I'll read off what's in the chat in a minute. So reading, I see, baking, writing.
Professor McDonald.
Yes. Is that Amaya James?
It sure is. Hello.
Oops, I went to the wrong slide. Go ahead.
I really enjoy expressing myself in baking. There's so many different things to make and flavor combinations to try. So that's one of the ways that I enjoy expressing myself.
All right. And I don't think that you're alone. I see a lot of people enjoy baking. In the chat, I also see gardening, playing with my
I'm a
kids, which is,
reader and a journalist.
go for it. Say it again.
I'm
I'm
a
hearing.
reader and a journalist.
Okay. So writing and reading. Awesome. Anyone else want to share? Okay, so again, I see a lot of different talents, a lot of different creative outlets in here. So mine is crochet. So these are all things that I've crocheted, okay? I did the whole Disney character lot back in like April or May of last year. You know, it really killed a lot of time, like trying to figure out how to do all the shapes. Then obviously after the inauguration, the Bernie Sanders meme was such a big hit that I had to crochet a Bernie. So I actually got a lot of orders for Bernie Sanders, which really surprised me because I make some really pretty things and everyone wanted a Bernie. So I made a lot of Bernies. And then lately my daughter, Victoria, has been into Pokemon. So I've been crocheting Pokemon. And so I recently just finished Pikachu. But this is one of the things that I do to kind of tune out my mind. You know, it actually is kind of meditative if you get into your crafting and you get into the thing that you love that kind of allows you to express yourself outwardly. So I really recommend that if you don't have something that you do regularly, you know, that you get into something or try something new, because I do think that with a lot of the time that we spend at home these days, that it is important to kind of have that expressive outlet. And I know that for some people, you might be on campus more now and things are a little bit more normal. For me, I'm still working from home pretty much full time, and I don't expect to be going back until September. So it was really important for me to find ways of kind of expressing myself throughout throughout the last year. The next thing that I'll talk about is gratitude. This one can be particularly challenging. And the question I asked you in the survey, what's one thing that you're grateful for? And the question on the slide in front of you is a little bit different. I ask you, are there things that you are more grateful for now than you were before 2020? And there's a difference between the two questions. I think we can always think about something that we're grateful for in the present. And if you can't, it's something to try and practice a little bit more often. But is there something that you had before 2020 and all this hit that you didn't really recognize as something that you're grateful for? Anyone want to share? I see the chat's going off. So let me take a look there.
My love of school.
Love of school, like being in school, like physically being in school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because before 2020, I wasn't thinking about school, and then all of a sudden I applied for post and got in.
Okay. All right, awesome. So being in school, I see some people are putting things like their significant others, spouses, and partners. Patience, being able to have patience. That's a good one, Emily. Family. Christina said family. Hugs.
I have one.
Go ahead.
One of the things I really miss about like pre-pandemic was being in the kitchens. So since I'm in the culinary portion of Monroe College, you know, I was in the kitchens a lot, especially fulfilling my service hours for my scholarship. And now that, you know, COVID has happened, the kitchens are closed more often, so I'm not in there and I'm not on my feet and getting hands in. So I miss that a lot.
I totally hear that. I'm just going to read a couple of the other ones. I see people saying freedom for sure. I see people saying like pets, like I see my kitties from Teresa. And again, it's like, you know, your pets have always been a point of joy in your life, but when you're home with them all the time, you really, I think, take on a different sense of gratitude for them. Good health, absolutely. Alone time in my car, Professor Wigato, the commute, right? You never thought you'd miss the commute, but you miss the commute. And for those, I know some of people on here are like, oh, I live 5 minutes away from campus. Professor Wigato does not.
I do miss the commute. I miss my 5 hours a day in the car.
So he had a lot of alone time in his car. Going places, right? Having that interaction with friends and classmates, right? So these are all great answers. And again, I think, you know, sometimes these are things that we take for granted a little bit in the moment, right? And so I wanted to call your attention to that because I think it is an important thing to kind of focus on because I don't know, I feel like things are so negative. You know, like the news cycle is negative. You know, I think we focus on like, oh, things are just okay, you know, and we kind of always go to that pessimistic place. But if you can think, you know, even if it's just for a moment a day, like one thing that you're grateful for, it actually makes your day better. And this quote, my day begins and ends with gratitude, you know, I think is a good one. But again, I would encourage people, if you don't already kind of, and they call this a gratitude practice, if you don't already kind of think about that, to think about that. And I really try. There's a lot of days where I don't offer my gratitude for things. And I mean, what's an example? Like, I mean, even something as simple, and the people who know me well will, and my students probably know this too, is my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I would offer gratitude for that like every single day. But sometimes it's just the little things, you know. And I know that as I've gone through this, I have gratitude for many of the same things that you guys have said. You know, my husband, my daughter, the fact that my in-laws and my father have been able to get their COVID vaccines and have remained relatively healthy. You know, those are all things to be grateful for. So I think that's something to also think about as we go through, not just now, but also beyond now, right? Because what COVID has done and what this pandemic has done is it's offered us time to reflect. And that's something that Chris put in his theme statement for this year with infrequently asked questions and finding solutions to impossible problems, that not everything about this circumstance is necessarily bad, right? That we can find some good in it. And I think one of those ways is to practice gratitude. The final thing that I'm going to touch on today, and I kind of want to practice this with you, so bear with me, is meditation. So anyone in here meditate? I don't know if we could do the way that my screen is right now, I can't see everyone, but show of hands or in the chat, thumbs up in the chat. So I see yes, I see lots of yeses. That's awesome. Yoga is a form of meditation, I would say, Dr. Dinan. Yeah, and some people might say I've done it before the pandemic. You know, I haven't done it, you know, at all. So wherever you are, that's fine. I try to practice every day. So what I'd like to do, well, first I'm going to tell you about the benefits of meditation. So some of these things you probably already know. You know, it can improve your sleep. It can help you stay calm, you know, particularly like when your audio won't connect to the Zoom session and like, you know, you really need to connect to class. It can create your capacity for creativity and help you focus. It can clear your mind. And I think it does help achieve a greater sense of awareness because again, it's all about giving yourself a little bit of space. And I think one of the things also that we have to acknowledge, and this was true before the pandemic, but again, I think this point of our existence really allows us to look at this closely. Our minds are never fully in the present unless we will them to be. And what do I mean by that? You know, right now, and think about this and tell me if this is happening to you in the chat. So again, interactivity, right? Is your mind thinking about something that happened to you earlier in the day? Are you thinking about like what's for dinner or how good your dinner was? Because I know a couple of you are eating your dinner right now. Or what's going to happen tomorrow? Like what paper do you have to do? Or what final do you have to give? Or for those of us who grade them, like, you know, what's on your plate that has to get graded? You know, are you thinking about the past or propelling into the future, right? And your mind is always running. And it's very good about that. It's going to push you into the past and it's going to try and propel you into the future. But meditation's all about the present moment. And that's what makes it so valuable. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm taking out my phone because I'm going to time it, okay? We are going to do this technique together, okay? So however you want to do this, and I know you might not be sitting down on the floor. Sitting on the floor isn't a prerequisite for meditation, but try and sit up a little bit straighter if you're not sitting up straight. And I want to take just a minute, literally 60 seconds, and I'm going to time it. And I want you to focus on your breath, and I want you to count how many breaths you take. And I'm not saying like breathe slower, breathe faster, like just breathe normally and count your breaths for 1 minute. All right, are you guys ready? I see some nodding heads. Okay, so let's go. All right, 1 minute starts now. That's a minute. Okay, so in the chat, or you can call it out, how many breaths did you take? So we got a big range, 13, 26, 11, 18.
Is a breath in and out, or is it
Yes,
just
in and
okay?
out. Sorry, I should have clarified that. Good question. 42, 12, 14, 8. Okay. All right. So was that hard? Next question. Was it hard, or did it feel like a long time? And again, for everybody has a different experience. Okay, some people are like, I'm surprised a minute passed. Okay, so that's all a minute is. So pro tip, if you're feeling frustrated, if you need a break, like just shut the door to wherever you are, walk outside now that it's getting nicer out. And you don't even have to time the minute. Count for the number of breaths or breathe for the number of breaths that you just said, and you will have taken a mindful minute. And again, you know, I don't know, does anyone feel a little bit different after doing that even? Like right now in this moment? So I see Ashley's raising her hand. I see people are nodding. Okay. You know, and again, that's all it takes sometimes to kind of just get out of like whatever it is that's pulling you, whether it's to the past or to the future, to be in the present and to be in the now, is 1 minute. And what you guys are saying is calmer, more present and relaxed, right? You feel more focused. And again, how easy would that be to do that in a moment where things feel a little hectic or a little crazy, right? And again, you read about people who do, you know, mindfulness, and they're taking, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes out of their day. You don't need to do 10, 15, 20 minutes out of your day. 1 minute is more than enough. So I want to do one more technique with you, since I think you guys like that. And then we're going to kind of wrap it up. So this technique is a little bit different. Okay. And again, we'll do it for about a minute, but I'm going to take my time to explain it. All right. Because everyone's going to be a little bit different depending on how you breathe naturally. So I want you to do your inhale the way that you normally would, but I want you to count inside your head. How long does it take you to fill up? All right. Then we're going to pause. And then you're going to exhale the breath out, but I want you to drag your exhale, meaning make it twice as long as the inhale. And then you pause again, and then you repeat the cycle. So this is a technique called double down breath. Okay, so when your out breath is twice as long as your in breath, it sends a signal to your brain that you're calm, and you can make yourself calm by breathing this way. So if you inhale to a count of 2, you would exhale to a count of 4, inhale to a count of 4, exhale to a count of 8. Even if you're like, I can only count up to 1 when I inhale, then drag your breath out to a count of 2. All right, so I'm going to take, let's do this one for like 45 seconds. I'm going to start the timer. So again, I noticed people were practicing good mindfulness. You closed your eyes to get the screen out of your face and everything before, so you could do that again. So practice double down breath. I will call out the instructions for the first 2 rounds. All right, here we go. So I want you to inhale and count, pause, exhale twice as long, and pause. Again, inhale, fill up, count, pause, exhale twice as long, and pause. Do probably about 2 more rounds of this at your own pace. And if your eyes are closed, open your eyes, because that was already 45 seconds. So I don't know if you guys like that one. Some people really love that one. Other people are like, that's like too much, like that's too much for me. But one of the things that I think that's really good about that technique is as Jessica is saying, it's relaxing and it can go fast. But if your mind is busy and just breathing, you can't like tune out like your inner monologue. You have to concentrate on the counting, right? So you're counting as you inhale, pause, counting as you exhale, and it really makes you like detach from whatever was going on. It gives your brain something to do kind of instead of just breathing in and out. And yes, as Josiah said, he concentrated on the counting. So that's awesome. So I hope that one of those 2 techniques was interesting to you. So, I'll ask you really quick, which technique did you like better? Number 1 or number 2? All right, so I'm seeing a lot of second ones. So I hope that you can kind of take away something useful and a tool from today's address. So we only have a couple minutes, and then I want to make sure that my colleagues who are working on the next event for you guys tonight get a chance to you guys get to zoom over into those rooms. So how do we move forward, right? I want you guys to think about these words. I practice and I try. Okay, we're honors people. We like perfect and we like only. Like I only got a B+. I only got a 90 on the test. My GPA won't be perfect unless I drop this class. Get rid of those words. They're useless. They do you no good. Okay, because all of the things that I talked to you about are not about perfection. They're about practice. And really, I think that that's what life is about. Practicing every single day, right? And I don't think there's any way for any of us to know for sure what the future holds. But again, one of the other catchphrases that I really don't like about this time is new normal. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on what's your normal and how can you find and maintain it? Because I think that that's what's the most important thing, for you to find your place, for you to find your comfort zone and to work to maintain it. And that's not to say get comfortable or complacent. Push yourself and challenge yourself. But, let all the other stuff go. One more quote. All right. And I haven't been binging this, but I watch it on Thursday nights and I can't believe what's happening. Anyway, the infamous Meredith Grey has told us we spend our whole lives worrying about the future, planning for the future, trying to predict the future as if figuring out will cushion the blow. But the future is always changing. The future is the home of our deepest fears and our wildest hopes. But one thing is for certain, when it finally reveals itself, the future is never what we imagined it. Thank you, everybody. And again, I'll put the link in the chat. So if you haven't had a chance to take my survey, please take that survey. And I'm going to share results through social media channels. Torchy, thanks you for tuning in. And I want to again thank my colleagues on the board and plug our next couple of events. So we have 2 things that are coming up next, which is our big picture discussion, which is more for our faculty and staff attendees. And then for the student attendees who are here, our student reps will be doing our student decompression chamber. So the student decompression chamber is an awesome way to network and to meet people. Our student representative, Taylor Bennett of Gannon University, is going to be hosting that with you. And then our 2 faculty reps will be hosting the big picture discussion, Anne-Marie Delapizzi from Dominican and Zachary Aidala from Bloomfield College. So make sure that you zoom over to those rooms in the next couple of minutes. They'll wait to start because they know that this is just ending. But again, thank you guys so much. I can hang around for a couple questions or comments or, but I hope you guys enjoy NRHC 2021. I know that I'm having a great time already.